for me, the distinguishing characteristic of Bolivarian socialism, or what they're calling the 21st century, the attempt to build a 21st century socialism here in Venezuela, is it's a very clear recognition of what I think was the principal failure of 20th century socialism, which was to lose track of the fact that socialism was nothing if it wasn't democratic, socialism was nothing if it wasn't participatory. And I think in a deeper sense, socialism is nothing if it's not a transformation of human potential, in a direction where, where active participation with other human beings, is the means through which people are seeking their satisfaction. And that just comes across very, very strongly in the sort of ideology and in the programs, that
here in Venezuela
that have become sort of the featured and noticeable programs here in Venezuela. I think there's a clear recognition. I think there's a clear recognition here in Venezuela of what are the principal failures of the socialism of the 20th century, and an absolute commitment to not making that mistake again.
And I would like to agree with everything you said, Robin, on this. And I'm impressed by the commitment to democratize institutions, and the example of the communal councils is one among many, and participatory budgeting. And I'm impressed also by the quantity and quality of experiments, but as we discussed before, there is a tension here in every process between quantity and quality, and so the challenge will be how to spread these participatory processes at the large scale, because communal councils are in urban areas 200 to 400 families, and in rural areas about 50 families.
Smaller, 20 to 50.
20 to 50, and they're doing it throughout the country, so it's a vast experiment. I haven't seen an experiment of participatory democracy of this magnitude anywhere before in the world. I don't know if there has been any I'm not aware of. So it is very ambitious, and I find it fascinating. At the same time, the challenge will be how to ensure that these processes get the support, the enabling structures to develop fully, and to ensure that people develop their full potential and their human capacities through these processes. So the trade-off between quantity and quality.
So if I understand you correctly, you're basically suggesting, well, maybe some of these things should be done with pilot projects rather than throughout the country all simultaneously.
I don't know, that's a difficult question, because pilot projects are not the answer per se, because we know that pilot projects sometimes are done under very particular circumstances, with lots of resources, with lots of human talent, and then and material resources. And then when you want to expand these pilot projects in a massive scale, there are many problems and there are many failures, and we have a long history of failures in moving from pilot projects to large scale. So I don't know exactly what the answer is, but probably will be something in between the large scale, quick implementation and the small pilot projects, something in between, and I don't know exactly what it is, some balance.
My own feeling is that having the massive experiment process where something is happening simultaneously throughout the country gives you, one, the ability to have a massive ideological campaign, which is affecting everyone, knows that this is the project of the nation, of the society, and also at the same time allows more people to be participating and growing in the process. There's the potential that many or some at least of these experiences will fail and create, disillusion and cynicism, etc.
That's a risk.
But if there are a number of successes, they can be sort of tutors to the others.
Yeah. So you need to develop the system of mutual support by which successful communal councils or participatory experiments can mentor, can support the others. So some mutual network of solidarity and mutual support among these experiments could be a good idea, I think.
When people ask me, well, how can you be so positive about the Venezuelan revolution? Most of the economy is still private enterprise. There's still tremendous discrepancies in wealth, and there's still real poverty in Venezuela. They're creating, workers cooperatives, but many of them are going to fail. They're not and there's still all sorts of problems that they have to figure out the answers to. All of that's true. The important thing is that it seems to me that the process down here recognizes that there's still a tremendous way to go. But there is a complete commitment that this is going to be done in a way in which people are participating in the decisions that are going to be taken about how to do these things. That there's a commitment to that fundamental democratic, process for answering how we're going to go and where we're going to go. In the economy, I'm not saying that the critical problems have been solved. There's we have workers' co-ops. We've got communal councils now. It seems to me from conversations I've had, with various people here, including in the planning ministry, that there's an awareness that we don't want to lapse into the old centrally authoritarian bureaucratic planning of how it is that we sort of manage this economy. I am very pleased that there seems to be a very, very high level of awareness of the dangers of then continuing to allow the market system to operate, or even worse, embracing the market system is the only way to allow autonomy for communal councils and worker cooperatives. There's a real awareness that we need to find, a different way of solving this problem that, frankly, nobody in the 20th century socialism ever succeeded in finding. So I'm not saying that people have solved all the problems, but they seem to have identified the right problems, and they seem to understand the necessity of why it is those problems have to be solved, and they have committed to a process that's fundamentally the only process that socialism can tolerate, which is we will solve this or we will not solve this democratically.
I mean, there's no question, that the Bolivarian Revolution has provided hope around the world. That suddenly, we're in this society, a world in which the concept of there is no alternative. There is no alternative to oppression. There is no alternative to exploitation. There is no alternative to neoliberalism. And everyone, I think most people say, well, the Bolivarian Revolution is providing hope to people. It's not just hope because it's a saying no to neoliberalism and no to all of this. It's also saying yes to something very important, which is the way is participation, protagonism. It's a new way, a way that wasn't used in the 20th century. We probably should start winding this up, but this is maybe an opportunity to sort of close on that note and talk about that question.
Well, there's no doubt that Venezuela and its government right now is really a leading force in the battle against neoliberalism and imperialism worldwide. And that, in and of itself, is why it deserves the full support. Anybody who understands that imperialism is the scourge of the earth, and first and foremost, that's what has to be defeated. But yeah, what is distinctive about Venezuela as compared to some other countries that are also battling imperialism is the extent to which there's a social transformation process going on here that we have been pounded on now, for decades. Anybody who believes that a better world is possible is naive, utopian, the end of history, et cetera, et cetera. So it's both, in the forefronts of the ranks of fighting imperialism actively around the world, as well as, challenging the myth that there is no alternative. Yes, there's an alternative. There's always been an alternative. And we needed to be reminded, we who aren't Venezuelans needed to be reminded of that again, and Venezuela is very important for us for that reason.
I think it's important for all these reasons, and also as you said, that after 1989 there was this sense of denial that there is no alternative, and most of progressive people all over the world, all the energies went into criticizing neoliberalism, but there were very limited amount of proactive experiences to show and to say, well, we can move into a 21st century socialism that is different from the 20th century socialism, that there is no need to repeat the same mistakes again. There is a need actually to not repeat the same mistakes again. And I think that the Venezuelan experience shows that there is an alternative. It shows also inspiration. It has an inspiration for many other people all over the world that can see that another world is possible with tangible, complete experiences, and also shows that not only at the domestic level there can be changes, but also at the international level with all the solidarity mechanisms that Venezuela is engaging in Latin America and with the countries of the South in terms of supporting each other, not only in economic terms, but also in educational programs, social programs, health programs, shows that another world, not only other countries, other national arrangements can be different, but also another world can be different. Another world can be different than the world based on solidarity, based on compassion, and based on a commitment to full human development.
I think that's, you sound perfect. I think that a lot of what we're trying to do at the CIM, the Centro Internacional Miranda, and particularly in the program on transformative practice of human development, is not only to work on developing these ideas, but also to communicate this to people outside Venezuela, because we all know that outside Venezuela, what you get is complete distortions of the whole process. That the information you get is so limited, and so an important thing, and I think this is one of the ways in which this discussion and the video of this will be useful, is to communicate. Okay, well, that's it. I think it's a great discussion.
Muchas gracias.
Okay.